Today we're going to fix some crazy banding and some big long roots and turn everything into a beautiful solid platinum. So this is a first-time client of mine, and she sat down in the chair today and she had told me she just needed her bleach roots done. She had a little bit of banding, but I did not expect this amount of banding, you guys. This is so much darker in real life. Her natural hair is like a level 4. I know my camera picks up a little bit more brightness onto dark surfaces and dark hair colors, but this banding in the back is truly like a level 7, 7.5. And her natural root is pretty dark. So I'm going to show you guys a little trick that I do with my foils whenever I'm dealing with hard banding or really long bleach roots, is I cut my foils and I make them a little longer than the length of the root that it is itself. So I've got a whole big stack here and we're just going to get started. So I've got her prepped with K18. I've used the key litter and I've used the mist and I've used a little bit of the mask on the ends too because she's very dry, damaged hair. I've split her into 4 sections and I'm going to start with always covering my perimeter first because that perimeter is going to be exposed to air, and when bleach is exposed to air it tends to dry out and again leave banding or leave an orange color because it's not going to go all the way. So I always cover the perimeter first, and after I'm done my section I cover the perimeter again with a new fresh batch of lightener because then it can keep going, because again this stuff is exposed to air and you don't want that to dry out while you're putting on your sections, and you also don't want to miss any little spots because they will show. I started applying the color at the back section. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute, but I'm going to switch over my camera angle so you can see what I'm doing better. This is what I'm doing. It's a few pieces down, but I did realize that my camera was just, it wasn't serving. It wasn't giving what I wanted it to give. So over here is a lot better. So the reason why I'm starting from the back today is because the banding in the back of her hair is so much worse than the banding in the front. It looks like her previous stylist probably started from the front and then went to the back and didn't process anywhere quite enough, but the front processed more to like a level 8, the back processed more to a level 7. And then she grew out her roots for 3 to 4 months, honestly. These are really long roots. And so what I'm using today is I'm using Blonde Or by Wella, and I'm using 20 volume on only her virgin root. And I'm using these pieces of foil in between so that it can keep the heat insulated in there, which is why probably a lot of people would think first do the mids and then do the roots. But for me, I prefer to do the roots and to lay in a foil because that foil keeps everything nice and warm and it gives a more even lift. Because I do find it actually is pretty high risk to put on a mid first and then a root. If you don't have to and you can do something like this, I feel like this is a lot safer because you don't want to process that mid pretty much till all the way and then put on a root and then have some overlapping and have some crazy damage happening. So I do prefer this method. It's easier and it's faster, and I personally find that it's better, but if you have your own method, that's totally fine. So yeah, I am starting from the back because she is a level 7 in the back and it needs more time to process. And when I say a level 7, I mean that band. I don't mean her natural root. Her natural root is quite dark. She let me know that she has a lot of orange in her hair naturally when it lifts, and it likes to lift almost all the way and then it pretty much stops lifting. So that was really good to know about her hair because that is something that we did have to address pretty much with her hair. I'll show you guys that later. But pay attention to how I'm applying my color here because I am going methodically. I'm going pretty slow. I mean, for me, this is considered really slow. This is in real time. I'm trying to be very careful about the thickness of my sections. They are all the same thickness as much as I can help it. And I'm applying heavily, lots of lightener to the front and to the back of each section. I do not want to miss a single hair. I don't want to miss a spot. I don't want to like not saturate enough because then you're going to get even worse banding. You're going to get so much more noticeable stuff happening. So that's why I'm applying like this, and again just a single piece of foil to lay in between every single piece is going to be good. It's also going to help you to be pre-sectioned for when you need to tackle those bands too. It keeps the hair a lot neater, and then you don't have to be running a rat tail comb through the ends of someone's hair with lots of clay-based bleach or sticky bleach on their hair. That's going to cause a lot of tension and pulling and snagging. You don't want that because the hair's already going through enough today. So I'm pretty much going to be doing this from the back right side and then the back left side, and then I'm going to go to the right front and the left front, and I will show you what that looks like all in foils. So this is what it looks like when the whole head has just the root applied. And by the time I got done the left front side, the back was basically ready to be reapplied to for the banding area. Now, when you look at this, it looks like it's definitely light enough of the root, but it's actually kind of not. So you can definitely see that band there, but I'm going to show you guys how I tackle the banding and those dark, not all the way lifted roots. Now, this is something that's pretty advanced, and I would not attempt this if you're a new stylist or haven't been doing hair for a long time, because it is pretty high risk. Look at those bands. So I'm going to be starting exactly where I started from in the beginning. I'm going to take each section and reuse these foils. I am reapplying new lightener, fresh lightener, to the band and to that area that is quite golden, but I'm trying to not apply it strictly to that root zone right there, because the root has all that extra heat that's helping it lift to that perfect level 10. And also to keep in mind, what I'm using to lift right now is gentler than what I used to lift the root. I'm using Wella Blonde Or with 10 volume instead of with 20. And what this is going to do is it's going to be a slower lift. It's going to lift things up at an easier pace for me to keep up with, because if I were to use a 20 volume, this would go way too fast for me. I wouldn't be able to keep up with rinsing out things in the proper time, and then I would end up with lots of damage and breaking. So this is a pretty high risk part of the service as well, where you have to go back in, you have to paint on only the banding and not over that over processed blonde area, but also because my natural root over here is so long, it hasn't lifted as well as the first half inch of the root. You can see that that second inch and a bit that I've just bleached is still super, super yellow. I would consider that like a level 8 yellow. And that's just not good enough. We want it to be level 9, 10. So that's why we're coating it a second time. But again, being careful not to touch the scalp, because her scalp has already been sitting with 20 volume on it. We don't want to add unnecessary discomfort to her. And also her first half inch of root doesn't really need it, because that heat of the head has lifted it all the way to where we want it to be at this point. It still has a little bit longer to go with its timing, but overall, it's doing as well as we expect it to, and we just have to tackle this banding. So you're going to go along, and after you've applied the roots, basically go right in and immediately tackle the banding. I don't give it any waiting time because it takes such a long time to put in these roots in the first place. I was foiling this girl all day. This is not a standard bleach root service, by the way. This is considered a color correction, and I gave her a discount on her service for sure today for letting me film. But this is definitely considered a color correction because it is so high risk, and this is not a standard service where I have predictability in my schedule where I can double book clients or I can book myself a lunch break. I am standing by this person's head for 6 hours straight when I'm working on them. So constantly getting new bowls, constantly getting new formulas, and working around whatever the hair is telling me, which is what makes it a color correction. In all honesty, is it's not a standard service. You always have to recalibrate, recalculate, and reformulate as you're going, and think on your feet. And you have to think really quickly sometimes too, because chemicals work at different speeds all over different areas of the head, and you have to be thinking about all those areas all at once and how you're going to tackle them. So this is a pretty advanced service, and I know it looks pretty touch and go and pretty easy, but it is something that I actually quite enjoy doing. I really enjoy doing color corrections like this, and I know a lot of people don't like them. They're nervous of them, they're scared of them, and that's okay because you're being realistic about it. My number one piece of advice is that if you are going to be doing bleach roots or anything like this where you have to paint up to a line exactly and then have the bleach not move, is to use Wella Blonde Or. It's the only bleach that I've personally used that isn't one that moves. I've used Blonde Me for years, and as much as I like the lifting power of Blonde Me, it's pretty intense and it does tend to swell a lot, which is why I don't use it on any of my scalp bleachings anymore, and I don't use it on any of my color corrections like this anymore. I tend to use it in my foil work, my balayage work, because it has such a good lifting power, but I don't use it for anything like this. And honestly, your tools are going to be your number one ally here, or your number one problem maker when it comes to doing a big high risk color service like this, because her hair can snap off 2 inches long. Like, That's what we're talking about with the risk here. We're not talking about, oh, she could get like some crispy ends. We're talking about her hair could just snap off where I'm bleaching it right now. And it could do that all over the head. I've seen it happen, not in my own chair, but I've seen it happen where clients will come in, they'll sit down, and their hair on the top of their head is 2 inches long because they went to a stylist and their stylist ended up having their hair fry off for whatever reason. But whenever you're using a bleach, do not use a bleach that swells, only use a bleach that stays in place. Now, something that actually makes this bleach a little bit more difficult to work with is its consistency. I'm not a huge fan of the consistency of the Wella Blonde Dorplex. It feels like a clay bleach mixed with a powder bleach, and so you have to be super methodical, I guess, on the way that you're going to approach it before you start, because once you put this in the hair, it's extremely difficult to separate the hair afterwards. So using little foils like this to separate in between is my favorite way, because it keeps things clean and it keeps things pre-sectioned and easy to section out after, again, when I want to check on the hair. Versus if the hair were all to be one big mass of bleach and you have to use a comb or a clip or something to separate sections in, this stuff is going to be an absolute nightmare to do that with. And if you have a tender-headed client, they're really going to hate their time in your chair, because it pulls and it drags on the hair. And if they have a sensitive scalp, they're going to be uncomfortable for the whole service. Plus their scalp being bleached. It's not a fun time. So we've had a bit of an incident with my camera. I couldn't upload the footage of me doing the toner today, so I'm just going to tell you about the toner with my sink footage. This is what the hair looks like just before I'm about to rinse it out, by the way. I'm going to do section by section. So the first color we're going to apply is from roots to ends, and it is a 9-1, which is a 9 cool tone, and then 9.5-21, which is level 9.5 with ash and cool tone, and 9.5-98, which is level 9.5 with violet and a tiny bit of red. And that gives a beautiful pearlescent tone. Then we're going to go over the ends and the mids because they have a little bit of extra warmth, and we're going to go with that using a 811 and a 9.5-98. And the 811 is a double pigmented cool tone, and the 9.5-98, as again, has the violet red in it. And what that does is it balances out all those kind of almost like greeny ashy tones and makes things a beautiful platinum white color like this. This is her final result. We did not do a trim today, and we didn't have time to style because she had somewhere to go, but look at what those roots look like now. They're so much better. And yeah, they're not perfect, but they are so much better. And as she maintains her appointments regularly with me every 4 weeks now, we're going to be able to maintain this look a lot better. It's going to be a lot healthier, a lot lower risk. And overall, I'm very proud of this transformation. I'm very, very happy with it. It was a really tough one because we did have to add extra lightener to those, roots and mids that were already pre-lifted. And it was a tough one, but I really enjoyed it. I'm really happy with it. And I want to know your guys' thoughts. Do you have any thoughts, comments, questions? Leave them in the comments below. And of course, if you want to support the channel, please remember to like and subscribe and watch my videos all the way through, because that really helps. And it helps to, show my videos to other people who love hair or want to learn more about hair. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this video today. My name is Katie. I'm from Bobby Hair Studio. And remember to follow me on Instagram at Bobby Hair Studio. Have a great day, guys. Bye.